July, thank you very much for joining us here today, July. This is Brick by Brick by Parvis. I believe we're on episode 10 now, so we're about halfway through the year, which is great it's great that this has gained some traction. It's great that people are finding value in what we're doing. Today, we're joined by July Ono from OCMI MFT and many other things. I've heard her story a fair few times, and it's very impressive what July has done over her career and the community that she's built. I'm looking forward to hearing more about that today from her. Just a couple of things on the Parvis front. From a disclaimer point of view, the content today is not intended to provide and should not be relied on for investment, tax, legal, or accounting advice. Who's Parvis? You might be wondering. Parvis is a technology-driven real estate investment platform and exempt market dealer registered in all provinces of Canada. What we're doing is bringing institutional quality real estate investment opportunities to eligible, accredited, and Canadian investors. And we're looking to make that process as simple as it can possibly be. For more information, visit our website there. July and OCMI are now up on the website and on our platform, and it's great to have them and all her wonderful investors that have joined us. I'll pass it over to you, July, just to share your screen and go ahead. I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Excellent. I think I am sharing the screen.
Okay, let me stop mine.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go.
And I'll go share screen. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for showing up. It's my pleasure to present the Coquitlam Landmark project. It's phase 1 of our land acquisition, and I'd like to really thank Parvis Invest for hosting this online platform and reaching a larger audience. So thank you so much. It's been fantastic having Parvis Invest come alongside us as our exempt market dealer. And so this rendering that you see right now is created by Arno Mattis and Gordon Yu of Mattis Architecture, based in Vancouver here. Okay, move forward.
It's an impressive looking building.
Yeah, well, he's European, so he's brought that European flavor into and I believe the city council love it too.
Yeah, I can see why.
Okay, how come this page isn't moving forward? Okay, there we go.
Yeah, beautiful.
Great. So a little bit of history about us and how we made it here. For the past 20 plus years, we have been buying residential apartment complexes and managing them ourselves. So we started off with 20 years ago, four joint venture partnerships, 1 limited liability partnership, 2 bare estate trustees, 4 limited partnerships, 2 active corporations, and a holding company. And so we built all this up, and then we realized, and then we sold everything 20 years later. And so what happens is when we did that, is 20 years of goodwill just disappeared the moment we dissolved all the entities. And so this has been an issue going, how do we not do this and repeat this? So the way forward is to create this mutual fund trust that will survive us. And so that's why it appears that we're new, but we're not. We're actually real estate investors and property management. And so what we realize is managing C, D, B class, A class buildings, we really love managing the A class buildings. The tenants, they pay their rent on time. There's no damage. There's no disturbances. They're like the ideal demographic for a building. And my expertise is going into the buildings like Fort St. John that you see up there, 129 units. We had like 5 buildings on the corner over there, and we transformed that building from what can we say, constant police interventions to living on site and basically revamping everything. Same for Thunder Bay, Ontario, right across the street from Lakehead University. We took over a portfolio of 321 units over there. Also the same thing, moved in. And yes, if you mentioned July Ono to the police, they know who I am because I evicted all the drug dealers. So what we did was we transitioned out of property management and long-term rentals into development and construction. And so Willoughby Walk in Langley was our first build of construction. It was purposely designed for tenants because, managing these buildings for 20 years, we could see all the ways you could actually improve these buildings to be tenant functional and not just construction developer functional, if you know what I mean. And so this was a, yeah.
It's an interesting point. And I think the more time I spend in the space, the more I hear about people doing this type of thing. And it's great because having lived in a condo, rental, if they focused more on the tenant, it would be a much nicer place to live.
Oh, we don't understand why developers build master bedrooms with no light fixture. It's like, that's the first thing a tenant wants. They want to come home, go to the bedroom and flick on the light and there's no lights. It's like, what's that about? But that's what they do.
My old condo was exactly like that. It didn't have a light switcher there, now that you mention it.
They want you to bring your own light, light what standards. And it's like, oh, really? And so that's why this building is designed for tenants with lots of lights. Instead of having pony walls, we made a very big open space. So that's why it's basically condo quality, but it's all purposely built for rentals. Bigger elevators, so and the corners don't get scuffed. All those things that you have to take into consideration with wear and tear on a building. And so that was quite the ordeal. I just had a huge learning curve, and as a result of building this, I decided to get my CAPM, my project management certification, so I can track what these builders are doing. And so at the corner of 80th Avenue and 208th Street, this building is right across the street from the Willoughby Town Center Mall. And what was it? Oh yeah, in 2018 it was completed. 2019, CapREIT, they launched a press release announcing the ownership of their latest acquisition. A little bit of history about us. Who are we? So Steve Kane is my husband and business partner since 2002. And we're not your typical real estate developers. He is a master baker. He's a former owner of the Olafson's Baking Company in Western Canada. And they were eventually bought out by Canada Bread, a division of Maple Leaf Foods. And he was personally mentored by Michael McCain. And eventually exited that baking business in 2007 to join me full time. And then 10 years ago, we brought in Olga Karen, who is a legacy accountant. She's a forensic auditor, and she brings this amazing comprehensive expertise and knowledge in the construction and development business. We actually headhunted her away from a multi-billion-dollar company to become our business partner. And so I am July Ono, a real estate mentor, educator, and investor relations. I love adding value to other people's lives. I love educating our investors before they invest. I want them to have the knowledge so that they can make the wisest decisions for their financial agenda and not be subject to someone else's hidden agenda. That's always been my purpose. And you'll see me online if you Google July Ono and .com. I used to teach investing.
If I can just jump in there, I would say you take fantastic care of your investors, having been involved over the past month. And yeah, it's very impressive the way you, the relationships that you've built with them and the time that you've done that. So congratulations. You've done really well.
Oh, thank you. Yes, that's why I encourage people to come out to our investor events. A lot of our legacy investors are there, and they can tell you they're serial investors. They've basically been in practically every single one of our investments, and because they just love receiving the value for their money, their hard-earned money. And as you know, most of our investors are not employees. They're business owners. They don't have a registered retirement plan from the government. They don't have that. They need to create another profit center to make their money work for them. And so our vision, I should just share that in between all this, over the last 4 years since COVID, I did complete my bachelor's degree in leadership. Might as well finish. I got my CAPM certification, and I'm just one course away from completing my certificate in applied psychology with plans to enter the master's program. And so we're learners, we're growers, and we have a plan to create $1 billion portfolio in the next 10 years. So if you'd like, there are recorded presentations of the 3 previous investor presentations. There were live events, but I recorded them. And if you want to find out more details, just go to julyono.com, go to news, videos, blogs. And if you scroll down, you'll see one of these things about the updates. And also, there is a free book. This is my second book, The 7 Profit Centers in Real Estate. I've held many, many seminars on this, and our investors are well familiar with the 7 profit centers. And so this is how real estate leverages your money in 7 different ways for wealth appreciation. Like literally, it will explode. I just want all our investors to read this book, only because it's very easy. It's in a narrative format. The math is great for math. It's simple. It just tells a story about my dad and how I was finally able to convert my dad to become a real estate investor in his 70s while he was paralyzed. So, and he became financially independent while he was disabled. And so before we get started, I know that Scott has given his disclaimer. I just want to point out, know your risk before you invest. And just because someone else is going into something doesn't mean it's right for you. So if you're an ultra conservative investor, this project is probably not for you. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy the presentation. But if you're an opportunistic investor and you have a higher risk profile appetite, well, there's a Q&A session following. We qualify this investment under National Instrument 45106, meaning that we can take in money from close family members, close friends, close business associates. But if you're on this platform, you're probably not any of those. So you have to be an accredited investor. And Parvis has their KYC, they know their client, to ensure that you qualify in one of these arenas. So you have $5 million of assets, not including your house, or you have $1 million of financial assets, not including your house, or you earn $200,000 a year by yourself for the last 2 years, or jointly with a spouse, $300,000 a year, you qualify. And there is a minimum amount, $150,000 exemption for companies, and it's automatically accredited if you have $150,000 to invest. And these are questions that you can ask Parvis about to clarify. So getting into this particular project, why Coquitlam? Well, we're value investors. We're always looking for a deal, because in my book, equity day one is the first profit center. If you don't buy real estate right and you overbuy, you'll never catch up. It's a horrible catching up game. It can take anywhere from 10 to 20 years to break even if you buy wrong. So we are always looking for value. And so this deal came along and we're quite happy. I'll tell you why, and it's coming up. Okay, why Coquitlam? Why should we go here? So when I started researching Coquitlam, I discovered it's one of the high growth cities in the 2007 Livability Accord. And so, you know, in the Fraser Valley, we have Abbotsford, Langley Township, Surrey, Coquitlam, and they projected that into like 2040, 2050, their population is literally going to double. And so they had to do something in 2007 to anticipate this, create the infrastructure. And if you just Google high growth cities in the 2007 Livability Accord, you'll see the article pop up, hopefully. And I put the link down there. Coquitlam happens to be the 5th largest population and the 8th largest Metro Vancouver area, which surprised me. I didn't think Coquitlam was that large. And the national average for population growth is 5.2%, and Coquitlam is growing at 6.7%. And yes, there's growing pains all around. This particular project, the little dot at the end, at the bottom here, is 576 Lougheed. It's located within 840 meters of the Lougheed SkyTrain station. That's the big dot over on the left. So 3 years ago, literally 3 years ago, 2021, we had this under contract for $6.1 million. And there's an auto body shop and an auto repair shop on this site for the past 40 years. And so you kind of realize, okay, vehicles, there's probably some contamination. And sure enough, the phase 1 report came back stating that there's potential contamination and recommends a phase 2. And so we attempted to do a phase 2, and the sellers refused. They wouldn't allow any drilling. They obviously were fearful there was contamination on the site, and we just couldn't take the financial risk. Like, how do you know, if is there, like, you can't even quantify the kind of contamination. So we walked away. And then 2 years went by, and in that 2-year time frame, every single buyer that came to buy this piece of property also walked for the very same reason. They're not going to buy it without a phase 2. And so by this time, the owners realized that no one's interested in buying their property, and they attempted to go back and reopen negotiations with the other buyers, and they all walked. When you're dealing with billion-dollar companies, they're just not going to take you seriously anymore. So we decided to reopen negotiations. We're very open, and by this time, guess what happened? In that 2-year time interval, the Bank of Canada raised interest rates 20 times. And so now the lending environment's completely different. And if anything, people are putting brakes on development projects. And this is our niche. We love going into these areas. So one of our buildings was in Prince George in 2006. We bought it at the height of the mountain pine beetle infestation. When all these people are vacating Prince George, we actually went in and we picked up this beautiful A building. Only because the research pointed out that it was only going to affect like 2,800 jobs, really. And so you saw all these C and D buildings vacating, emptying out, but all the B and A buildings were still staying full because these were the managers, professors, RCMP officers that weren't really affected by the forest industry. And sure enough, Prince George came around, and that was one of our star buildings, by the way. And so we were able to actually negotiate them down from the original $6.1 million to $5.5 million. And along with that, we just had a recent appraisal done back in April, and it is now appraised at $7.38 million with no improvements. That's just the land value just sitting there. So we have equity day one of $1.88 million built in on literally the day of purchase. So this is the site description. As you see, parcel D, that's the site of 576 Lougheed. Now, beside it in the yellow rectangle is 590 Lougheed Highway. And it took us a year to figure out who bought it. The sellers were actually paying their lease to the Ministry of Transportation for the past 40 years and discovered that they're not the rightful owner of the land. We discovered that the city of Coquitlam owns the land. So there was a little delay, debacle there where they had to transfer all the money that they got the lease over to the rightful owner, and then updating the PID to reflect the current owner before we could buy it. So that was like a 3-4 month delay. But the great thing is the delay was very serendipitous because in British Columbia, the province just put a mandate out called high density zoning for transit-oriented development areas. So if there's a project within 800 meters of a SkyTrain station, for instance, it's automatically high density. There's no more rezoning required. And so this eliminates a lot of red tape for developers, obviously. And it's a little confusion and concern for the municipalities because now they have no control over building height within the TOD. And so that means if you can go as tall as you want, there's going to be a lot of infrastructure pains coming down the future. Just within a kilometer, I think in the Coquitlam area, there's an 80-story building planned. And that's going to go, wow. We're not building 80 stories, but that's going to be like huge. And I think like...
What's the other tallest currently? What are they kind of at?
Well, they're like in the 40 stories,
so it's just
right? So 80 is double
gigantic.
That. Yeah. And it got approved. So it's like,
yeah.
Oh, what is this?
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. So there's a little concern. And also we just recently learned last week from our project liaison with the city that they're combining first, second, and third readings into one reading because they no longer need a public hearing. That's what the city's concerned about. Yep. So by the way, we've entered into negotiations to buy this piece of land. It's just a remnant piece from the city, but they won't negotiate with us until we actually start first reading. And we definitely want that to make way for the parkade at the bottom. So here is a quick review of our offering. So we're only funding phase 1 on the left right now, just to pay for the land, all the architects, consultants, all those fees, and take it through the rezoning application phase. Next year, when we actually pay for all the fees and bring it to the building permit phase, that's next year. So for now, we're funding phase 1. We're halfway through. We're offering a 12% preferred rate per year as the base. And then at the end, we're going to offer a 50% profit share split for phase 1. And we project that to be 3 years. We think 2 years, but we've dealt with the other city before, and you just have to factor in a year delay because we have no control over how fast they'll actually push this through the rezoning phase. And so if it exits faster, great, but it's 3 years. And these numbers are based on a 30-story building. We've based it on a $30 million sale. And just between you and us, we have submitted drawings for a 47-story building. But I can't really advertise that because it has to be vetted and approved by the city. But that's potentially how high it could go. It's a 100% purpose-built rental building for tenants. And we have some special designs coming into the building to make it very attractive for insurance providers. And there's going to be a daycare facility in it. That caught everyone's attention. Affordable housing component up to 20% because you get bonus density for all these things. And we proposed a 2-level CRU podium. CRU is a commercial retail units. And the city just a couple days ago asked us if we could add a 3rd CRU level. They want us to double the daycare capacity. And the only way for us to do that is to take away space from the residential units, which they don't want. So they asked us to build an extra CRU component level it's like, oh, sure, we can totally do that because we didn't know we could. And as a result, we're looking into actually adding maybe another 4th or 5th CRU level as well. So we estimate, conservative estimate of 23.7% per year at the 3rd year exit. And phase 2 next year, it'll be 1 year less. So the profit sharing is 25.75, and it's still decent. So we did do a pre-submission application to the City of Coquitlam on February the 9th. And we've already received their feedback, have incorporated all of their comments and suggestions. And recently, we're still doing a very aggressive campaign of visiting every single council member independently. So we did that via Zoom. And then we went back just in the last week, visited everybody in person. And our business partner, Olga, she is actually conducting her 2nd set of in-person interviews at the request of the city council. Oh, so see on this rendering from the architect, there's an 80-story building in the back. The pink building in the front is our site. And you'll see that's where the 80-story is. It's like, oh, wow. So that's where the rendering is. It's just showing our building in relation to all the other proposed developments. So this was like a week ago. We went and have a project update of city council, our engagement with them, how they're offering bonus density calculations, changes coming up to the OCP, which is the official community plan, and the zoning bylaws, and the parking requirements. So regarding city council engagement, we received all their individual feedbacks because every councilor has their own niche and what they want, and so then we've integrating all their feedback into our subsequent project submissions. And so I would say predominantly everything's been very positive. And everybody wants more daycare, for instance, but there's a limit. You can only go so large because you have to have the daycare providers for more children, which may or may not, we don't know. So we're in conversation with an organization that actually has daycare, and they can come into our building. And we've also received support for additional CRU space. So we're actually engaging local business improvement association businesses who may want to come into the CRU podium. City has been very clear. They don't want franchises. They want local mom and pop shops that'll create a local vibe, a local atmosphere. Plus, they want public access to EV stations on site, which is obviously obvious. I'm going to talk about that coming up. So there's something called priority units, and these priority units are going to offer more density. And so if you know, that's the next, is that the next slide? Yeah, it's the next slide. I'll talk to that in the next slide. And the daycare. So the more we accommodate the city's wishes, the more density they'll give us. And so this is a priority unit, 3 bedrooms, family units. Building developers, they don't like building 3 bedrooms because it's not the highest and best use of their return. So the maximum they usually do is a 2 bedroom, and then they'll just tack on a den. Well, that's technically not a 3rd bedroom. And so if you recently, just in this last week, I've seen CBC News articles, and there was an actual TV a news clip about people who can't find an affordable 3-bedroom rental anywhere in Canada. Like literally there's none in Canada. I was shocked. And so there's this huge demand for priority units. And so we have affordable housing inside our building. And so now we have the attention of City Council. The problem with a den, you can't make it into a 3rd bedroom because of building code. Every bedroom has to have an ability to egress in the event of an emergency. That's why.
That's an interesting point because there are no 3 bedrooms anyway. So
very rare.
It's not. You really shared it. I think some light into the way government's approaching this. And I've heard from other developers and issuers as well around the measures that they're trying to put in place to help with the housing crisis and everything like that. But then also, like you said before, the pressures that's going to place on infrastructure as well. It's a very complex problem, and it's really interesting to hear everyone's take on it.
Well, there's so many levels. You bring one factor in, and other factors are are affected.
Yeah.
Like 20 years ago, when I entered Thunder Bay market in 2008, I was going, why aren't they building quad occupancy apartments that they're doing in Kitchener Waterloo, for instance? So my idea was you create these self-contained units, like it's called a box, right? One apartment's a box. And then instead of 1 or 2 bedrooms, you have 4 self-contained bedrooms with their own ensuite, and then they share a bedroom, they share the living room, and they share the cooking space. And that way you have 4 tenants, possibly up to 8, sharing the rent for 1 unit. I approached it at the time. I went to some financial people, and they shot me down, saying that you can't do that because no one will insure it. But I think now maybe there's an appetite for that type of product, but still in my brain.
Yeah.
So right now, the province mandated that all municipalities in British Columbia update their official community plans to include the high density transit-oriented development areas. And so they have June 30th is the deadline. But what they're realizing now, just a couple days ago, it's you just can't force municipalities to just simply adopt these changes and implement it. So they're phasing this adoption in over a year. So it's in 3 steps. So they're just phasing all this stuff in until June 2025. And the big thing right now is municipalities are very well aware of their DCCs. They know their development cost charges. And at this point, the new bylaw stipulates ACCs, amenity contributions, cost contributions, and they don't even know what they are. The province hasn't told any municipality how much these are. So now there's a big waiting game for developers going, well, how much is this going to cost? And no one knows. We're waiting on the province until the end of this year. So what's unique is our application was submitted on February the 9th, before all these changes are taking effect June 30th. So that means we have the option, we talked to our liaison, we can actually submit through the old former OCP, or we can do it with the new OCP. And so we're just still massaging through that to see which is going to be better. And then we have the parking requirement. So under the old OCP, this is the issue. We have a 1-to-1 parking requirement for the units, and we're like 130 stalls over limit. And so we've been working with the city on how to resolve this issue without building another level parkade, because it's so expensive going down yet another level. And so more levels we can save, the better. And so one of the councilors suggested contacting Evo Car Share and Cardigo Bike Rentals. And what they're proposing is, for one EV stall, there is a potential for up to 5, 6, or 7 gas stalls. So this may be the way to circumvent the parking. And then zoning bylaws. So that's the release of the, yep. And then we're currently concurrent submission, and the province is staggering their new policy to come into effect. Okay. So our next steps, we received suggestions from over half the council members to say, please stop meeting with us individually, just get us into a room all together, and we'll all agree together, because everyone has their own agenda. And sometimes their agendas can conflict with another council member's agenda. So it's just better to just have an open discussion. And then once we have their formal, like informal agreement, then we can make the formal submission, and everyone will just rubber stamp it. And so currently, yeah. So we're actually scheduling that, I think, after Canada Day. It was just too many. Trying to get all 9 councilors in one room is a challenge. So next, I have investor next steps here. Is if you haven't set up your free Parvis account by now, just go to parvisinvest.com and set up your free account. It does nothing. It puts you in the queue. You can do your KYC, and your account is just ready for whatever investment that you wish to pursue. And then if you'd like more information about some of the more relevant things that are pertinent to you, we can definitely schedule a private discussion with me at via email, july@opec.com, or just call me on my cell. I'm more than happy to schedule a private discussion with you. There are some things that we can't discuss publicly until it becomes public knowledge on the city platform. So I usually disclose the more private matters in a live seminar, but I will not disclose it online. And so this leads us into our Q&A session. Anyone has questions, I'm more than happy to go back in the slides and review. There you go, Scott. Thank you so much.
Thanks. I don't have any questions written in I offered before. I think this has been really good. I think it's clear to me your experience in the space, especially and how opportunistic you've been and prepared you've been to capitalize on great opportunities. So I think, yeah, I've learned quite a lot today, and I think this is a fantastic project. Yeah, it's really looking forward to having more investors put money into this through our platform. I think they've been great so far. And like I said before, the relationship that you've built with these people over all these years, it's really clear that you support them in everything that they do, and you really do put their interests first.
Well, I think I try to convince people not to invest a lot of times, because if it's your life savings, I will definitely advise you not to do it. There's an 80-20 rule, right? Make sure 80% of your financial base is stable. It's that if anything happens, you have that base, and then you have the 20% play money where you can invest that into the higher risk returns, but it won't affect you if you do lose. There's always a potential of losing. Like, just because we've done well in the past doesn't necessarily predict that we'll do well in the future. But our track record actually predisposes us to being very cautious. we're very ultra conservative in our estimates, and we are very, very slow. It took over 3 years to bring this to this level because we had to make sure this was a really good deal going forward. Otherwise, we would just walk. And we have walked from dozens of opportunities that didn't make sense.
Yeah, patience really matters in this game.
Yes, and so that's our forte. We're very patient. We've held our Fort St. John properties for 20 years, and that was amazing cash flow.
Yeah.
And our Thunder Bay portfolio for 10 years, and we've lived on site. You know, I will go there and make sure our tenants are taken care of and our investor returns are taken care of. We love doing capital improvements and managing long-term things. So my goal, my dream is to actually build this building ourselves. Exit is in 3 years to another builder developer, but that builder developer could very well be another one of our funds to build it ourselves.
Yeah.
And it would be awesome to be able to manage this building for 10 to 20 years.
Fantastic. It's been great having you on today. I've learned a lot, and all our viewers will learn a ton from this as well. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Scott, and thank you for showing.
July. Thank you, everybody. Thanks.